We leave from Fort Saturday. We start by south side. It's delayed no matter what.
They just have their own time.
So my daughter actually booked my flight for me.
We're just getting everybody gathered up here. I know we have the green light.
Yeah, here comes Jim.
Jim's here. Natalie's not coming.
Jared has the green light. So with that, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have, first I'd like to welcome, we have a new council member. Chet Simmons is here, and Natalie's off today. She doesn't feel well, but welcome. This is your first official meeting. There's going to be a lot of questions. You're going to have a little quiz at the end, so
You gotta answer them all.
this is how we're going to go with it. So the first item we have is assignment for requests for council action. We have several for the Finance Committee: 2545 advance requests, 2546 budget amendments, 2547 expenditure for Fanning and Howie MCRC, 2548 replacement of scale cluster municipal court, 2549 expenditure for TEGOH IT department, 2550 fiscal year 25 CHIP partnership agreement, 2551 bids for West Liberty, South Elmwood, West Washington waterline improvements, 2552 needs assessment feasibility study Medina Municipal Complex, 2553 municipal court renovation guaranteed maximum price agreement number 2, 2554 ODOD brownfield remediation program grant application, 2555 discussion possible amendment to ordinance 16222 hunting, 2556 cybersecurity liability insurance renewal. First item we have is 2542. It's the 2024 carry forward request. Keith?
This came from finance. It's the unspent appropriations to the extent that we're able, and with the exclusions of healthcare and like those lines like that.
Yes, this is again for everybody who knows our budgeting process. This is where the money that's been saved up over, it's been about what, 15, longer than that, 20 years now. So we're at a carry forward of $13,847,000, which is great for each of the departments to plan for special projects that they want to do in their particular department, but that's what we'll be approving. Then they can reappropriate it and move it around in their department as they wish.
I did want to point out, we did not do any carry forward in the sanitation fund because we don't have the funds to be able to appropriate that much. And we'd done an advance that you approved at your last meeting because of the shortfall there. We did do a rate increase, so we are straightening things out there. We kind of held off on the rate increase longer than we normally would because of being unsure what was going to happen with CPF. So we're a little short in that fund for the time being.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about the carry forward?
Did we get the issue cleared up from last time?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, there was one issue that came up last time regarding an amount of money with the municipal court clerk. I was looking at some of the things, and there was numbers that weren't matching up, but that was clarified.
It turned out it was outstanding POs were not included in the carry forward, Jim, and that was the difference of what the carry forward was versus what the budget was.
Thank you. Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2545, fund advance request. Keith?
Thank you. This is an advance for a grant. It's, we've talked about this for a long time. It's that brownfield at the old Yost Sunoco.
Any questions?
This isn't to remediate. This is just the study. But this is the advance to cover that.
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2546, budget amendments. We have 2025-007. Keith?
So the first two are for the advance that we just did for that grant. So we have to have the appropriation of the money to advance from general fund and then the appropriation in the grants fund to spend. And then the others are a grant for railroads, economic development as contractual service increase, and then a repayment of advance for the West Smith Road.
Questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2547, feasibility study proposal for Fanning and Howie MCRC. Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request, it's under the dollar amount for the Finance Committee, but we wanted to bring it here so that it was in front of you first. We are looking at doing a feasibility study to add a turf area onto the west end of the field house at the rec center. Number of years ago, before we did our fitness room addition, we did a feasibility study with Fanning and Howie, who is the same architect that the Medina City Schools uses for their buildings. They were the designer of the high school and the rec center 20 years ago. So when thinking about what our next big project would be down the road, this was one of the ones that rose to the top as the greatest need for, in my opinion, the community, as far as the high school sports teams, the local associations that we have, and it would also set us apart from other rec centers in all of Northeast Ohio if we had our own turf area incorporated into the footprint of our building. So we started looking at this project a little bit more seriously and reached out to Fanning and Howie to see if we could get a feasibility study to see, one, if that is possible, two, what the cost would likely be, and to get a rendering so that we have this on the table so that we could seek out potential funding either through a state capital bill cycle in 2026 like we did previously with the fitness room addition, or even potentially reach out to some of our local foundations. But once we have a cost estimate, a rendering, and know it can be done, then that gives us the opportunity. So we felt that this was a relatively good cost to get all of that accomplished so that we have a plan in place and can look to continue to grow.
Just a couple questions on this one specifically, and then on our expansion that we had completed already. Did we amend the ground lease for that? I think we did. I don't recall, because I think the ground lease would have to be amended with the schools because we changed the footprint.
The ground lease was not amended. We did, I believe it was an addendum to the ground lease. We had some paperwork that we needed to sort through. When we actually were awarded the grant to do the finalized paperwork, we did have to record something. Jim, do you remember what that was?
It was we're having it surveyed and with the new, the addition on there too then. And then we're going to file it with the recorder's office.
Yeah.
I think that's ongoing right now. Barbara was working on that.
Yeah, we're just waiting on the survey to come through before it gets recorded.
And with this new project, is it a joint project, then the schools will be paying for some of it, or how does that work? Because if they're using it, how is that gonna work?
Yeah, so we haven't got that far into it yet because, one, we don't know if we can do it yet. But we have thought about it internally. And the way we were going to try to treat this, knowing the schools, where they're at with funds, we think we have a pretty strong case with local foundations and with the capital grant to help illustrate that this would benefit everybody. But we're in a position where we have a pretty good amount of carry forward at the rec center from savings over the years, as well as we just had our highest year ever on record this year. So we need to see what the cost is, what type of funding we can get, and then make that decision. But ultimately, if and when it does get built, we're going to have to look at that joint operating agreement, which we look at every year anyways, to determine what percentage of time the school could use it, what percentage of the time the city could use it, and sort through that. Obviously, there would be pretty high demand for it, but the same demand is for our field house as well. So we've worked through those. Right now, we're taking the approach that if we can get outside funding for it, Christy and I are in a position where we need to make that decision, but we haven't got there yet. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I mean, we're doing an expansion. I would imagine first the groundings has to be addressed, and second, the use of the facility would have to be addressed. And if it's a capital improvement, I would assume that there would have to be either grants or the school would give us money to, since they're going to use it to help build it.
Yeah, don't want to speak on behalf of the school. I did advise the assistant superintendent that we were going to be having this discussion today. I believe that made it to the school board as well. I think we just need to cross that bridge when we get there, and let's make sure we can get it done first, and then seek funding. Ideally, it would be to spend as little money from the city and the school as possible.
And I know you said we have carry forward, but we don't, that's for those days that may be coming, that we want to make sure we have money available to use, because I think the grants, I mean, it may be a state grant, because I have a feeling federal grants, there's going to be a lot less of them. And so I don't know if that's going to follow through with the states, so we're just going to be on our own, so to speak, for a while. I guess I don't know the answer to that, so that's going to be a tough question.
Yeah, and if you think about the fitness room addition, we talked about that for many years before it came to fruition. This is kind of along those same lines. The fitness room addition the building was originally designed to have the windows removed and the fitness addition to go in. That was 20 years ago. So the way we're looking at this, we know there's a need. We know it can more than likely be done. It can be connected to the building and the city can manage it. So it makes the most sense. We just want to get the plan.
So is the vision, when you
place.
say a turf facility, is it like you see at some campuses like a half a football field? Is that what you're?
No, it'd be much smaller than that.
Okay.
So we're looking at, if you look at the proposal, it's 3,500, 4,500 square feet, which would basically be the size of a basketball court.
Okay.
We have some challenges with the site because we have to maintain fire door or fire escape access, and it's right next to our pool. We've had, like I said, a preliminary meeting with them to look in from a 3,000 foot level to see could it be done. This is to go a little bit further in depth and arrive at some numbers. And basically what we're looking at though is a solid concrete wall all the way around with a sloped roof connected to the field house and turf flooring put in with netting, so it can be multi-use. It won't have football lines on it. It's not going to have any other sport lines on it. It's just going to be green turf, able to be utilized by anybody, and a room that's designed for everything from football to lacrosse to baseball, where you can have balls that are hit and you're not going to have windows broken or anything like that.
Well, that's good. Anybody have any questions?
No, it sounds great.
Just a comment, I'm going to abstain only because it is a feasibility study completely paid for by the city. The school's not involved at this point other than being notified of it, but I don't want there to be any appearance of a conflict, so I'm going to abstain on this one.
Any other questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2548, expenditure for replacement of scale cluster at the municipal court. Cindy?
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2020, the municipal court replaced 3 of their servers, and they are 5-year lifespan, so we are coming up on the end of their lifespan. We got a quote from TEG for $58,293.75 to replace those 3 servers, and we're going to hang on to the older ones just in case something happens, and we can kind of use them for disaster recovery.
Just a quick question, since we have Sergeant Zaremba here. Is there an off-site backup server at the court too? Do you guys have that? Do you have like, or is it all just on-site?
Like a COOP plan?
Whatever you want to call it.
We had talked several times about having an off-site server. I know we've worked with TEG. One of our backups is off-site, located off of 18, on Route 18, for any records that we back up. But having those servers set somewhere else is something we're going to look at.
Now, I guess the question is, can you duplicate with our system, or is it, you got such security issues that, and I guess I don't know the answer to that. I would assume we have the same security issues with the city because we have some confidential information. Is there a way to share that, or?
I don't think we could because of the bulk of the information.
So our DR is at the high school, so we take our other half of our scale cluster and we put it there, and we mirror our current one from here. So I think that's definitely an opportunity. It comes with an expense though, because we have a connection through Garfield that we pay reoccurring, a really high-speed line. So it would come at an expense that the court would have to look at going there. There also has been some talk even on our end to move out. Lightspeed has a bunker out on 18, which is what she's referencing. There's talk of that being a better DR location, a little further away from this area, and even us potentially moving our cluster there. So they're probably in course of trying to figure out whether they want to put it there or explore the option of putting it at.
Well, I mean, if you guys both join together, maybe there's a cost savings. I mean, I don't know, but I mean.
Well, for the schools, there's no cost. They let us run in the bunker room there with no problem. The issue is you still have to have the separate equipment because the equipment's rated based on the volume of how many servers, and I can explain that when we get on mine. So it wouldn't be a matter of being able to consolidate a DR. They would still need the dual equipment that can handle the load from their side versus the load from our side.
Gotcha. Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Ball?
thank you. Right, if I heard you correctly, you do not have a DR site per se, but you have a server sitting someplace on 18.
Yes, with
Okay,
Lightspeed.
so if this goes away for some reason, that's going to be your only location, or walk me through that if you could, please.
Well, according to the Supreme Court, we have to have 2 backups in order to be considered records. So we have a hard backup and then we have a cloud backup. So those are 2 electronics. The servers are now every night at a specific time backing up all the data, all the images, everything that's been used throughout the day. So now that we're potentially moving, we are trying to, we're going to mirror with the Common Pleas because our servers are going to be over there with the Common Pleas servers, but have our own space, but still stay away from the center of town just in case anything happens, God forbid, there's a disaster.
Okay, Common Pleas have a DR site or a backup site
I don't
someplace
know
else?
that point, yeah. I don't know that, I don't know, but we will find
Okay,
out from them.
So if you do work with them, with the Common Pleas, you're going to continue to have your data backed up someplace else as well, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
all right,
just to be on the safe side.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2549, expenditure for TEGOH for the IT department. Sergeant Zaremba?
About 3 years ago, we embarked on going to this newer technology, which is called Scale, which is what we have here. We have a 3-blade cluster in the basement that houses about 20 servers, virtual servers. We came of a virtual environment, so we continue that. This technology is a little better in how you create the DR, which is one of the reasons we went to it. We mirror it over at the school. Doesn't house as many servers. We downgraded the size of that. But the long story short is 3 years ago when I embarked on it, knowing that generally I've gotten 5 to 6 years out of our server farms, I wanted, being a new technology, to just buy the licensing for 3 years at that time so we could evaluate whether it was doing what we needed it to do. In this case, it has, so what I'm looking for here is just to continue, get 2 more years of support on the hardware and the clusters, and then again, do our reevaluation at year 5 and year 6.
Okay, questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2550 fiscal year 25 CHIP partnership agreement. Mr. Dutton?
Thank you, Mr. President. So in recent years, the city of Medina has partnered with the city of Brunswick on our CHIP program for home rehab repair and tenant-based rental assistance. Unfortunately, our 2024 application was not approved and we did not receive funding. Meeting with the state, most of the reasons were a difficult project we've had at 30 Circle Drive here in Medina, which we're just now finishing up. We needed a couple extensions on that. There was actually less funding than recent years, and we actually scored low on the level of distress, which is just where the city of Medina falls in the state. So that's something we can control there. As such, though, that's unfortunate. It's been a long-term plan for our department is to contact the county to partner with their program. So we've discussed with the county, along with Brunswick and Wadsworth, to submit one county-wide CHIP. That's something that we've all agreed to. Basically, Medina County would act as the grantee, so they'd administer it, keep the finances, and coordinate. This would save a lot of time and effort from the Community Development Department as well as finance and law to some extent. Medina County has been successful obtaining CHIP funding in recent years. We'd also received the same amount of funding, which has been $350,000, so we wouldn't lose any funds. This is a preferred format by both the state and our consultant. We actually use the same consultant on CHIP and CDBG as the county, so that would be consistent. It would also be easier for residents who are often unclear what round they're on, the county or the city, so it'd be kind of a one-stop shop with the county. So what we have before council is a program agreement to apply for the program year 25 CHIP with Wadsworth, Brunswick, and the county. It's rather basic. It's just our intent to start the process. If it goes forward, we'll have another agreement that's more specific with funding and amounts and who gets what, basically. But that's part of the application process. Thank you.
And I can't remember, this is a combination of state and federal, or is it just?
It's mostly federal.
Did you hear are we still, is it still going to be around? Do we know?
As far as we know, we're going under that assumption. Our consultant thinks it's going to be there, so we're moving forward as if the money's still there.
Do we have an option if it's not? Can we do anything? I mean, do we have an option?
Nothing really to this scale. I mean, this is kind of the biggest grant we get every 2 years. So I mean, it would be over $1 million for the county and the cities. There's really nothing that would be able to replace that.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Dutton, do you need the emergency clause?
Oh, yes, I'm
I
sorry.
did see that.
I did request an emergency clause in a revision. Basically, all the 3 cities in the county are trying to get this approved to get the process started. The application's not due until June, but it's a complicated process with multiple public hearings and steps that we need to take.
Okay.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2551, bids for West Liberty, South Elmwood, West Washington water line improvement. Patrick?
Thank you. We're asking to grant authorization to bid the replacement of the water lines on West Washington Street between Vine and Elmwood, and on West Liberty between Elmwood and Court. We'd also like to bid as an ad alternate South Elmwood between Liberty and Washington. This started every 5 or 6 years. We do a water master plan and upgrading the line on West Washington to make it a main for system improvements, better flow, fire flow, and redundancy was the #1 ranked prioritized project. We did get a $510,000 loan from Ohio Public Works, the 0% loan. But then we started thinking about West Liberty Street when we had the project that was going to be constructed there. We do need, that's only a 4-inch line in order to provide fire protection, both suppression in the building and for the hydrant. We really feel we needed to upgrade that line. And then we're thinking as the ad alternate, if we're just doing those 2 blocks, Elmwood's right there, all these lines, we don't know how old they are, but we have a water system map from the village of Medina from 1928, and all three of them are on there, so they're at least 97 years old. Our thought with Elmwood is, let's bid it and see if we get a good price. It seems like now would be the best time to do it.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2552, needs assessment feasibility study, Medina Municipal Complex.
Maybe I'll start and turn it over to Chief to expound on I'll start on the process. We're looking to go through a qualification-based selection process to select an architect to do a needs study on the Medina Municipal Complex, being City Hall and PD. We're doing this because the state of Ohio requires when you hire an architect or engineer and you anticipate the fee to be more than $25,000, you have to go through this process, which would be a public advertising. Interested architects would submit their qualification statements. We would rank them, review and rank them. We're anticipating doing that with a committee, perhaps some people on council, part of that committee. Once you rank the number one team, then you can negotiate, and at that point, if you come to an agreement, then we come back to council to authorize an agreement. So there's no cost to go through this process. The only cost would be when we select someone, when we come back to council. And I'll let the chief kind of expound on the goal of the study.
Pat covered it pretty well, but this all started with a need for space in the police department. In 1974, we had an authorized strength of 20 people between dispatchers, records folks, and police officers, and this building was built in 1973. Today, we have over 60 employees working out of the police department, including our records division, dispatchers, patrol officers, and administrative staff. So we were researching some ways to accomplish fulfilling those needs, and we wanted to do a proper process. And obviously, it starts with a needs assessment so that we have a professional company that comes in and examines our operations, our personnel, our space needs, and our operational needs, and then gives a plan for exactly what we need. And we want to ensure that we have council's input as well as the community's input, and that we just take it slow and do it right.
No, that's great. I think we've also discussed, as we can tell now with some of the issues we have in the engineer department, the needs assessment is going to look at the city hall and the city hall departments and see what the needs are here, because now we have two buildings. And what is the best use, first of all? Is there a best use for using both buildings with the police and city hall, or do we need something different? And I think with the condition, something has to be done in any event to the buildings to be usable, just because of the condition that they're in and the age of them. But we do have a lot of space. I think the city hall is about 30,000 square feet, and across the street's like 12,500 or 13,500. So with over 42,000 square feet, we should be able to satisfy needs with existing buildings, at least we have. But the question is, how does that work? What does that look like? And what do we do with some of these other departments? And I know some of the departments don't house themselves in City Hall; they house in other places. But they still have to look at where's it going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. So, is everybody okay with that? 100%. So the first part, we have to probably decide if we're going to have a council committee on there. So we'll have to look at, do we want that involved in the selection process of how we're going to look at that, and how many people and who wants to participate? When do you need to have an answer by?
If this goes to council March 10th, the 30 days, we would look to start advertising by April 10th.
So I think start thinking about it. My guess is how many people from the administration? You'll have somebody from the police department, I assume, and somebody from the city hall, which would be you, Patrick, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be Chief and I don't know who else.
Maybe Nino? I know
Maybe Nino.
Nino's
Nino would be a
out of
good
sight,
one.
out of mind, but he's still around.
Yeah, Nino would be a good one to be on it.
He's coming back.
So I think that maybe we'd have two members of council then to make it an odd number committee. I don't think we want an even number. That never works out. So think about it. We'll try to get two people who are interested to want to serve on that committee. So by next meeting, we'll let you know. Okay? Is that okay with everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Do we have to approve that? I think we,
No, I think at this point, Pat, you don't need a motion today.
do,
We don't really need legislation. We brought it here because we wanted to make sure there was kind of buy-in from council. so.
okay. Yeah, I think if it's looking at it globally, you know, there's no better time than the issues we're having now to solve all the problems. And if we're spending money, it's better to spend it one time instead of multiple times. So, okay. All right, so we have 2553 Municipal Court Renovation Guaranteed Maximum Price Agreement Number 2. Patrick, this is you also.
It is, thank you. As you know, and I think you know, we're under construction over the Muni Courthouse on the square. And that's because council passed previously GMP number 1. This is GMP number 2, which consists of the package that will be concrete, steelwork, the elevator shafts, the elevators, and purchasing some electrical gear. Price came in at a little over $1.3 million, which was about $117,000 lower than was anticipated. You might remember GMP 1 came in a little over $800,000 lower. And also, we had been carrying about an $883,000 design contingency. The plans are at their 75% completion now, so Rule and felt comfortable dropping that to $229,000. So at the moment, we're about $1.8 million below our original preliminary estimate. But the big one, GMP 3, is the one that's coming. We'd ask the council pass this, and we'll get this going. The next one, Rulon is to deliver to us on April 7th, which I mentioned is GMP 3, the $8.1 million one. And then we've scheduled a council of the whole meeting on Wednesday, April 9th, so council can kind of ask questions, and we can go over it and decide how to proceed from there.
You know, that's correct. I think this is coming in, you know, under budget, which is great, but we got to remember the budget was almost 13 million, which is, in my mind, astronomical, because we've never talked about a project that big ever. So hopefully, that's why I want to get council involved, at least in a GMP 3, to see, you know, what comes in, if there's anything that can be, if it comes in higher, we're hoping that it comes in lower, because you have to remember also, we have $750,000 on top of this number to pay the architect. So, you know, we're still over right around $12 million before the GMP 3. So we have to make sure, you know, my personal opinion, we got to get it by 10. I mean, we were at 7.8 million with the county, and, you know, now we're $4 million higher, which is 50% higher, which, you know, it's just hard to swallow, so to speak. It's very tough to have a construction project where we never, even, you know, when we're talking with Judge Chase, when he was at 10 million, that was out of the ballpark. And now we're at 10 million, and we have to take it. And we don't have to take 12, but, you know, we have to force the contractor to work harder, and they've been doing a great job, but we still have a lot of money to work on to get the number down. And I think we could do it. There's no reason why we can't. But that's kind of where we're at. And so when we have the meeting, we could talk about it, but they're going to go through the bidding process now to get the numbers for GMP 3, so we know where we're at. I guess that's pretty much it.
And we did want to ask for the emergency clause. A couple of reasons. First, we're under construction now. Delaying approving GMP 3 could delay the project. You know, they'd be at a standstill. And more importantly, I think they're really having a hard time. The electrical gear is a big ticket item with a very long lead time. And because of what may or may not happen with these tariffs, they're having trouble getting prices locked in. You know, the price is good today, but they're not going to guarantee, these vendors aren't guaranteeing anything past today. So to try and avoid all that, the sooner we can get it locked up, the better, I think.
No, understood. But it's getting late, so I don't know if we can get it today. I don't have any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2554 ODOD Brownfield Remediation Grant Application. Kimberly?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the state of Ohio recently announced another round of funding for the Brownfield Remediation Grant Program. And our thought was to try to get an application into the state of Ohio sort of as a placeholder for cleanup or potential cleanup that would be needed at the Yost-Sunoco site, or former Yost-Sunoco site, the one that's at 426 West Liberty. So their portal opened Wednesday last week, and in 3 hours, they received $125 million worth of grant applications. So it opened and closed in 3 hours. So we are not going to be able to submit the grant application, but our thought was to at least keep this on the agenda for now and talk to council about the potential of applying if they have another round of remediation grant program. We're not really sure what that's going to look like because the governor just rolled out his budget in the last couple of weeks. And so we have to wait and see what he puts in his budget and what the legislature is going to do. But what we've noticed in the last couple of rounds is that the county set aside money. They haven't done that in the last couple of rounds of funding. And so we had put on here a 25% match. So this grant that they just rolled out would have required a 25% match. So we had put $1 million request, again, as a placeholder, with the idea that we would ask council to consider the matching funds of $250,000, which is a lot of money. And of course, we don't know yet what the assessment's going to look like. We did release a request for qualifications, and we will be hiring a consultant. We'll bring that back to council for approval to hire them. So Patrick's been helping me through that process. So pretty much that process he just outlined is the process that we're using for the assessments. So I guess what I'd like to just ask council is to think about when we come back, hopefully with another grant application for remediation, what would they be willing to match in matching dollars, cash-wise? Now, we can also think about in-kind, like this application said it could be in-kind matching funds. So Councilman Chet Simmons asked today about what in-kind donations look like, or in-kind matching funds look like. So anything that the city did to maintain that property, if we were like mowing the lawn or doing any kind of cleanup work or mowing weeds or anything like that, we could look at that, at how much time, how much labor, any materials that was used for cleanup, that could be used as matching funds. So I think the mayor asked Nino to try to put something together. It's not really a 911 emergency, but that information will be helpful if they have another round of remediation funding in the future. So we're really not moving forward with this application, but we at least wanted this to be on your radar.
It's on the radar.
Yes. So think about how much money.
Well, the question is, you know,
Yeah.
where's the funds coming from?
Well, that's a very good question, and, you know, the mayor and I talked about that, because right now, we have the JED fund being used for the $100,000 for the current assessment grant. So the remaining money in the JED fund is already sort of earmarked, because half of Barbara's wages comes from there, a lot of our marketing and our Salesforce contract comes from there. So we would have to probably look at another account. I don't know if there's, what the funds look like in the general purpose capital or,
Economic development or something?
no, not my account.
Oh,
No, because I wouldn't have that much money, you know, like $250,000, that's almost my entire budget,
oh.
and you know that.
All right, well, we'll have to look if it comes to fruition, if they do another grant. I mean, I don't know the likelihood of that. I mean, if there was that many people that applied to receive the money, there's a lot of need out there, but
Yes.
does that mean the state's gonna address that need? I have no idea.
So that's the part of the question too, is the state of Ohio, they have approved so many assessment grants statewide that there's no fun in assessing all these if there's no way to clean all these up. So we're hoping that they're gonna be considering having a couple more rounds of remediation funds to get all these sites teed up and ready to go, get them cleaned up. I mean, we'll see what they do.
Okay. All right,
Thank
so I
you.
guess we'll just have to wait and see, like what you're telling us. Anybody have any questions for Kimberly? All right, thanks for the update. 2555, discussion of possible amendment to ordinance 16222 regarding hunting. Who's this? Is this Mayor? Okay.
So council passed an ordinance in 2022 where we established the archery program. And we did that with the idea of hunters getting permission from private property or properties that we would then inspect and make sure that it was safe. And I think council's aware, but for the public's benefit, we issued 13 permits for this entire hunting season, which ended the first few days of February, and we harvested 18 deer as a result of that program. In comparison, we had 20 deer vehicle accidents, which is an increase from a number of the previous years. But the deer pickups, both from the Streets Department and the Parks Department, was 141 compared to 102 in 2023 and 86 in 2022. So the point in those statistics is the program as it exists today, in my opinion, is not having the desired outcome that we were hoping for. My recommendation to the council, I don't think that the ordinance needs to be changed. It just says that you have to have the property owner's permission, but in transparency, Mr. Huber and I discussed it and felt it's best to share with the council what I'd like to try for next hunting season, which begins in the fall, is to have Lieutenant Markham and Jansen identify various areas of our public parks where we feel it could be safe to put these archery hunters in, and then simply rotate them from the locations we've identified, whether we mark the trees, put a flag at the trees, still with the tree stand, still with archery. But the impact, we know that the deer are hanging out or in our parks, and then they're coming into the neighborhoods to cause destruction and get hit by cars and be killed. Some of them, just not enough of them, and try to increase the numbers by making it easier for the hunters, as well as we established that we would charge a $75 fee to inspect the site the first time, and then $50 if they use the same site over and over again. We feel we could get more hunters if we simply waive those fees. And if we're identifying the sites, the work is already done. We don't have to go out and look at them. We've pre-approved them. I feel that we could eliminate a significant amount more, or at least provide the opportunity to remove a significant amount more. Another option that we're considering is that the first deer taken has to be a doe, so we don't have all the hunters waiting around for the prize buck. If they want to take more than one, at least take a doe at the front end, and then watch for your buck beyond that. So those are some of the proposals. The other option is, I was seeing that as a third step. Some folks think we should skip the second step and go to the third step, and that is just send our police in with rifles, bait them at night with a drone to protect the area, to make sure that dogs or cats or no other animals come in, and simply kill them and dispose of them the same way as we are when they're hit on the streets. I'd like to tell you that there's a place we could take them to be butchered and taken to food pantries, but the fact of the matter is most of the processing facilities have told us they could take a maximum of 20 if we did something like this. So if we don't have anywhere to take them, that doesn't permit us that opportunity. So I think logically we go from where we were to the second step and then a third step. Unless the council feels strongly about skipping the second step, I'm open to listen to that as well.
Well, the first question I have for Jansen, I mean, we've had estimates every year. what is the estimate based upon a year-to-year increase of the population? Do you have, I mean, we have to be getting a pretty large number. I think years ago it was around 600 or some odd number of deer, and that was a couple years ago, and now we're going through another season where the fawns are coming. I mean, we have to be getting close to 1,000.
So we asked the USDA that similar question 2 years ago. Should we do a count again? And their answer was, no, you've already done a count, and you know that you have too many deer per square mile in your city. It would just be wasting money at that point. The state will tell you, you have to gauge the statistics and look at the numbers that you have, the data that you can verify. So I can't answer your question as to how many deer we do or don't have because they travel well outside the city and into the city on a regular basis. But for the numbers that we do have, it's pretty easy to tell that those numbers are continuing to increase. By what percentage? I'd have to do an average on everything, which I don't have with me now. But when you look at the carcasses that we've picked up, they're more than double. If you look at the car vehicle accidents, they're kind of up and down. They've been up the last few years, but a ton of those are going unreported. People just, they hit them, they deer run off, they die, and people go about their day.
I know one of them, yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at our deer surveys, where we're literally using almost the same staff going to the exact same locations 4 times a year, it's those numbers are continuing to increase, and it's ironic that the numbers are so similar every time we go out and do it. To the mayor's point, I did want to mention the Medina County Park District has a program similar to what he's suggesting with Stage 2. They took out 64 deer this year. 52 of them were with the archery program and 13 were with a gun. And we've talked a lot about this internally, as the mayor had said, and we believe there's areas in our parks where this can be done and we can limit access. And these same areas already have people hunting right on the property lines. So, yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents.
If I could just remind council, the ordinance was passed in 2022, so it was a year or two before that the ODNR worked with us, and at that time, they said we should have 5 to 6 deer per square mile, and we had 50 to 60, or 10 times what we should have. So with 10 or 11 square miles, you can do the math. I do concur with Mr. Coyne that these does, if it's less than a year old and the doe births a fawn, it's generally one fawn. Those deer that get to be a year and 2 years and 3 years are birthing 2 to 3. So the number of deer, female deer, birthing versus the small number that we're taking away, we're losing this battle. I mean, it would be a guesstimate, but if we knew that we were 500 to 600 3 or 4 years ago, to think we weren't 800, 900, or close to 1,000, I think would be a pretty low guess.
Well, I think you're right, because if you just go around town, it's more of a commonplace to see a deer now than not. Mm-hmm. This weekend, Sunday, I looked in my backyard, I had 11 of them, just sitting around eating, and I said, I never had 11 deer in my backyard. So he's correct. We have to do something. We tried the hunting program, and a lot of them use it for trophy hunting, but I think if we had more of a controlled and using the parks, maybe doing the archery, but if we can't harvest 100 or 150 a year, we're losing the battle. We're just never gonna. And my bigger fear is we're causing so much economic damage to the city with hitting the cars, with the plants that are, the destruction that's occurring. It's not equal any longer. Yes, Jansen.
Just want to add one more thing for the public's benefit. We're trying to manage wildlife, and a plan like the state will tell you, it's got to remain fluid. You're not going to have, we're going to do this program and this is what's going to work for us. A lot of times it's a combination of 2 or 3 or 4 different things, and we're taking that path like many cities have, where we implemented a nuisance feeding ordinance. That's the first step. We changed our hunting ordinances to allow archery hunting by permit. The next step being on public land where it can be done safely. A lot of communities are using those effectively as maintenance items and have went to the next step where you do sharpshooting and you get your numbers down so that your hunting program can manage it from that point on. But the fluidity, you're dealing with wildlife, and that's just what we have to do to try and balance it all out.
Questions?
I agree with what the mayor is proposing. I agree that it is a fluid situation, and we should continue to encourage our residents to follow the programs that you've assigned from our Parks Department. Again, unless we start doing something more than, I think it was admirable that we had to wait a full year before we could implement the full hunting program, but obviously that wasn't enough. So I applaud you for coming up with these next 2 steps. We may have to do all 3 in the future, but I would definitely support the step number 2 for now. And, beginning of the next hunting season, and if we're not being successful halfway through, we can implement, I would be in favor of implementing your proposed step number 3 to finish out the season too. Thank you.
I have a question. So we gave out limited permits. How many did we decline?
This year, we probably declined 8 to 10. I don't have the exact number, but it's in that range. A lot of them, we just decline on the phone. Somebody will call and propose an area, and we just know that it's not possible to hunt from that location. We don't even inspect it. If it's not safe, we're not even going to entertain it, so we deny it.
So I think a lot of us, and I had been asked by members of the community, well, how many hunters do you think are even going to sign up to be able to do this? And we had no idea. With the limited number that have declined, did you keep their names and their phone numbers for possible contact to let them know about Plan B?
We do. We keep a record of all the people who have an interest in hunting. With that intent, if down the road we are able to provide a location for them, that we can give them a call.
Chet.
On the west side at our home, we've had a lot of deer, as everybody knows, Holly knows, and we've employed a service to spray with 2 or 3 week frequencies. And as I've talked to that gentleman that does that application, they've had to increase their route to 2 or 3 people now, 2 or 3 times the service, because it's in such demand by homeowners, who are paying a significant amount of money just to be able to have plants at their homes. So we can kind of monitor it that way.
Well, that's true too, and by having that service, unfortunately, you're just pushing them all to us that don't have that service. Because they just move.
Is that group en garde?
Yes.
Sir? Yeah. So I have them doing my flowers. They won't do anything that's edible, like my fruit trees or my raspberries, or that's just their rule. But it was interesting, just my luck, I guess. He asked my wife if I could give him a call so he could share with me the number of deer in the city. And my wife explained to him that, he's pretty much aware of the deer in the city. But what he wanted to share with me through her was that we can spray and spray and spray, but if you have 10 or 12 or 15, the amount of deer, whether they like the taste of it or not, if it's green and it has the spray on it, they're going to eat it anyway.
They're hungry.
That really, we need to do something with the volume of deer that we have. Now, this is the guy that's spraying and making money off trying to keep the deer away, saying there are so many deer that even the spray is not going to stop them. So obviously the herd is out of control. We all know that. That's why we did what we did. And it's, you know, it's my hope that we can do this. I'm sorry, one more thing though, on Councilwoman Hare's comment. Not only are we looking at the safety, the police department, the safety of taking the shot, but they're also concerned with the safety of if the deer does not immediately go down, where's it going to run? And if there's not enough space there, you know, and it runs onto a property they don't have permission for, if it runs onto a roadway and causes a crash, if it, you know, so it's not only the location and whether somebody could put a tree stand there and try to harvest a deer, but it's also if the deer doesn't immediately go down, and that's why we like when they can get, you know, either a ravine, multiple property owners, things like that, to take away some of that other danger with hunting.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing, regardless of which plan we go with, I would like to see us take advantage of as much processing as we can so we can help as many people as we can get some extra food. Okay, I think that's the only right thing to do, because, you know, that's why God put them there, to feed humans. So I would like to see that. And then if I recall in the meetings that we had back in 21 and 22, with some sort of special request, we can expand the hunting season within the city limits. I don't know who would have that. I thought that we could go beyond the normal limits past the fawning season, excluding the fawning season, but we could carry it a little bit more. Could we?
You can do it under a nuisance permit.
Okay, anybody disagree that they're a nuisance?
Well, it's all site specific, like a lot of tree farms and stuff get nuisance permits, farmers will get it, and it certainly does lengthen the season. It's just a little bit more paperwork and things that you have to do. Could certainly look into it.
Okay.
But the properties that we're looking at, to your point, are parks, and we're already going to be limiting the season because, you know, some of them, there's no way you could get into them until November, realistically. So you've already missed September, the end of September and October. So I think the route that we're going, we're probably going to need to shorten the season because of the location.
Okay, with the parks, but what are some of the neighborhoods, for example, where they were able to harvest some deer already this year? If we would expand those limits, could we get more?
Yeah, those would all be site specific. So the
Okay.
property owner could get a permit for their property specifically from the state if they wanted to apply for it, but we wouldn't be able to help them with that, short of giving
Okay.
them the
All right.
contact information.
So maybe we can put that in our information packet to the residents, for
And-
those who would
Yeah.
want to do that.
And the other question would be, if we're doing it in the parks, I don't think they want to use their tags. Is there a way that we can have them have more tags and don't use up their tags to help us out?
Chance, if you can address the nuisance tags that we got.
Yeah,
or
so
permissions.
we got controlled access hunt permission from the state of Ohio a few months into the season. We had to reach out to our contact at ODNR, and they ran it up to through their channels, and we basically, what happened was we got participants have the ability, if they're in our program, we're allowed to take up to 6 deer that would not count towards their county tags. So, you know, there was an individual that killed more than 6 deer. They took advantage of that. So that could apply, and we just need to send the request in beginning of before the beginning of hunting season. And that's information that we can provide to the hunter. Whether or not they check it in under that is entirely up to them.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, and I think we got to take advantage of that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess we're going to head down that road, so to speak. I know there's other things going on out in nature. I mean, the bird flu is going around. I don't know what impact that'll have on the deer, but they say that they say none?
None.
Really? I thought the animals are getting sick. I didn't know because I know cows are getting it. I didn't know if deers get it too. Deers. But we'll see. But I mean, who knows? Nature has a funny way of correcting itself sometimes, and maybe that's one way. Okay, so moving on, 2556, cybersecurity liability insurance renewal. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just catch up with you here. So, the auditors require us to have a policy for cybersecurity, and they also recommended that we have insurance, so we put this in place a number of years ago. The coverage is from April 1st of last year through March 30th of this year. We had been asking since November to try to get these, and of course, we got it a day or two after the last council meeting. And so here we are presenting it to finance now. We will need the emergency clause therefore, because we won't be able to take it to council until March 10th, and the existing policy takes effect April 1st. So we wouldn't have a chance to wait the 30 days, but I just wanted council to know that a lot of times with these insurance companies, you know, we're pushing, trying to get it to the 2 meetings in February, and we're still waiting for one more policy. I'm not sure if it's the airport, or there's one more outstanding that as many times as we've asked, we still have not gotten it, so.
Okay, any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. There's nothing else to come before finance, but we do have an executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session at 7 PM to consider the purchase of property for a public purpose. If premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose private personal interest is adverse to the public interest, to include the mayor and the law director?
Yes, sir.
And the law director.
Second?
Clerk, please call the roll.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Motion passes.
We'll be
6-0.
recessing into executive session, discussing land acquisition, reconvening into finance, taking no action of any item discussed in executive session, adjourning from finance, and then moving on to council. So we're in recess.